Hello and welcome back to the online edition of CMIS422, where we wrap up Chapter 8 on cryptography. Today's episode is brought to you by the letters K and C. So you may be aware that KC stands for the Kansas City Chiefs that won the last Super Bowl. Thank God we didn't have a round of coronavirus then that stopped the Super Bowl from taking place. I don't want to think about what that would have been like. To cancel the Super Bowl, but KC also are the initials of one of my favorite, maybe my favorite, definitely one of my favorite all-time bands, and that is King Crimson. So today's concert t-shirt is from their 50th anniversary tour. Oh my God. We went to see King Crimson back in September in Nashville at the Ryman Auditorium. Which is just a beautiful, beautiful venue if you ever get to see a concert there. Who is King Crimson? Well, they've obviously been around. I'm talking about, this group here. Let's see if I can kind of drag it over here for you. That's them. This is them. King Crimson, English progressive rock band formed in 1968. It's really hard to describe their music. It's a little inaccessible for some people. It's not really pop. It's more jazz, metal, punk, rock, fusion, weirdness. It's just weirdness. Just to give you a little taste. The other reason I wanted to do King Crimson today is, sadly, I woke up to the news that their drummer, one of their drummers passed, I guess this was yesterday, Bill Rieflin, from cancer, not from coronavirus, but he was only 59, which sucks. Now, when I say one of King Crimson's drummers, it's because, as you can see here, they have three, although I don't think Bill was in this lineup that we saw. These are, but I've never seen three drummers in a group. Not, percussion, 3 straight-on drum kits, which was amazing. Guy doing horns and different instruments over here. Their bass player actually plays something called a Chapman stick, which has more strings, and you play it by tapping, almost playing it like a piano. It's a fantastic instrument. Their lead singer, one of their rhythm guitar players, has a guitar that has actually the same logo that I have on my t-shirt that was the cover of their first album, Court of the Crimson King, 1969, and the great Robert Fripp, who's really the only consistent band member throughout their history. But just to give you a taste of the Crimson.
And then looking to see if I still liked it, I did.
Okay, if you think that's noise, you're not alone, but it is challenging music. If you want to stretch yourself musically, look up some King Crimson. Okay, that was probably more about me than you really wanted to know, but okay, back to class. Please remember the exam is open now. I double-checked Blackboard. It's up and available anytime between now being Wednesday morning, the 25th, and Friday the 27th at midnight. Don't wait until 11:58 to start the test or anything. But you've got a nice big window. You've got 45 minutes to take the exam. There are lots of extra credit questions, and I included 3 survey questions just to poll you on different issues on kind of technological challenges you might be experiencing, personal challenges you might be experiencing, and then your experience using Microsoft Teams if you're having any problems there, because I really am kind of shifting over to using Microsoft Teams for interacting with you guys. I'm not going to open up the discussion board on Blackboard because I think it's redundant. I think Microsoft Teams is a better solution. You can chat with me, you can send me messages, you can post things for everybody to see on Microsoft Teams. I do expect all of you to use the, here, let me just kind of pull it over here if I can. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, this is, I guess this is my activity feed. Let me go look at my Teams here. And that's 468. I'm still figuring out how to navigate this bad boy. But in 422, so I'm posting kind of different things in the main feed, if you will. And then we've got this interesting news in cybersecurity, and that's where I'd like you to be posting things that you would bring to class from the news, from your RSS feed. Just post them here and share a blurb about why you think this article was important, interesting, weird, funny, relevant. So this is where I'd like you to start populating security news. Your next deliverable is just project deliverable number 3, due March 30th next week, which is just another project status report on how you're doing with the test out. Remember, if you're more information is better for me on these reports in terms of how you're doing, what you're having trouble with, what you're struggling with, how you compare with your original schedule is the big part. I'm just trying to keep you on track. But let's go ahead and get wrap up Chapter 8. We don't have much more to do. We got through these learning objectives and left off kind of in the middle talking about different encryption protocols. I want to pick up there. And of course, the big thing is why all of these encryption protocols that we're talking about in this chapter suck. I'll explain. I mentioned WPA3, just to give you a little more information on WPA3, which is the new encryption protocol for wireless, for Wi-Fi in particular. Here's WPA3. So WPA2 is what you should be using in the workplace. Don't use it. Do not use WEP or WPA. Just don't. WPA2 is what most companies are using right now. Typically the enterprise version of WPA2. WPA3, companies are starting to look at rolling out. The big change here is the type and level of encryption that's used. And also there's better support for the initial handshake. I do have a short video to show you that might explain this a little better. All right, let's try this.
Recently, a vulnerability was discovered in the WPA2 protocol by an expert named Matthew Van Hoff. The vulnerability was called crack, or key reinstallation attack. This discovery, along with all the previously known flaws of WPA2, has led to the development of a new standard called WPA3 by the Wi-Fi Alliance. So following are some of the security features that WPA3 offers over WPA2. Protection against dictionary attacks. So the problem with having weak passwords is that they're easy to crack using automated processes like dictionary and brute force attacks. And WPA2 never offered a new solution to this, apart from suggesting the use of strong passwords. WPA3 has taken this into consideration and is said to have measures to mitigate such attacks. The Wi-Fi Alliance has said that for every guess at a password, the attacker has to interact with the network. They do this using a new authentication mechanism called Simultaneous Authentication of Equals, or SAE, which basically replaces the pre-shared key exchange used in WPA2. With this mechanism, the user needs to interact with the network to be authenticated, only after which the keys will be generated. This means that offline attacks are probably not going to be possible, and dictionary attacks will be just too time-consuming and worthless to even attempt. Security for open and public networks. Most open and public Wi-Fi networks are victims of man-in-the-middle attacks. The widespread adoption of HTTPS has been able to decrease the damage done, but the problem is still inherent in WPA2. So here's the problem. When you connect to a password-protected WPA2 network, all the traffic within that network is encrypted using that password. But if it's a public network, it doesn't matter if there's a password or not, since everyone basically knows what it is. Therefore, basically anyone can decrypt the data that's being transmitted. Hence, in open networks, the traffic is effectively insecure with no encryption whatsoever. WPA3 fixes this issue with the introduction of something known as individualized data encryption. As the name suggests, traffic between each individual user and the access point will be encrypted with a unique password. So even if access to the network itself is not protected, the traffic between each user and the access point is encrypted and secure. Higher enterprise security. Finally, business and government networks will receive an upgrade to 192-bit encryption as opposed to the 128-bit encryption currently used in WPA2 and WPA3 personal. This is a much welcome upgrade, even though the current 128-bit encryption is yet to be broken. So when will you receive WPA3 and how do you upgrade to it? The Wi-Fi Alliance has said that WPA3 certified devices will start rolling out sometime this year. The problem is that the access points and the connecting devices need to support WPA3 in order to use it. But something has not yet been made clear. Can existing routers and smart devices be upgraded to WPA3 with just a firmware update, or do they have to be replaced entirely to make the switch? I'll let you guys know when I find out. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more quality content.
Okay, so a couple of things in that video that, it gets a little technical, and some of you will appreciate that level of technical detail, and some of you will not appreciate that level of detail. It's a little more than we need to get into in this class, but I think it is important to kind of show you what's under the hood of a new protocol and why we make the changes that we make when new versions come out. I think he does a good job of explaining the whys and the whats. But at a fundamental level, just a better level of encryption going from 128-bit to 192-bit. So obviously longer keys are better, more protection against brute force attacks, better security for open and guest networks. And then on that simple diagram, keep in mind that WPA3 still is just protecting from the device to the access point. It's not end-to-end encryption. So WPA3 does not eliminate the need for a VPN. You would still want that on top that we talked about in the last video. You'd still want a VPN on top of this. It doesn't take the place of that. So I hope that's clear. And speaking of VPNs, here we are at IPsec. IPsec is the #1 most used encryption protocol for VPN traffic. It just stands for IP security, Internet Protocol Security, but we abbreviate it as IPsec. And no matter which manufacturer you use, whether it's Cisco, WatchGuard, SonicWall, Juniper, whoever, they're all using IPsec. Now, if I may, they're using their own version of IPsec, and what I've found is that VPN devices from different manufacturers don't necessarily work with each other. They're not necessarily stable, if you can even get them to talk to each other at all. One would think that, oh, you support IPsec, therefore my device can talk to your device, but in the real world it's just not that simple. Now, what is useful about IPsec is that it encrypts all traffic. All. Anything that goes across the wire is going to be encrypted. Unlike with SSL TLS encryption that's only encrypting web traffic, or SMIME that's only encrypting email traffic, or SFTP that's only encrypting file transfer traffic, or WPA3 that's only encrypting Wi-Fi traffic. The list goes on. Okay, to give you an example of what configuring a VPN is like, I know you have a test out lab sim on configuring a VPN that's a little vendor agnostic, it's a little generic, whereas I wanted to show you an example of creating a VPN, an example that wasn't entirely a Cisco example. I don't want you to think I'm a complete Cisco bigot, although they're the #1 player in town. Juniper is their biggest competitor. WatchGuard is a very good company for small to medium-sized organizations. They probably wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but that's where I'd kind of put them. I used a lot of WatchGuard devices. In fact, I thought their VPN solution was very elegant and very stable and flexible. So I did find a recent example of what this looks like. Now, remember, there are two types of VPN. There's a mobile VPN where you're installing a software client on a laptop that talks to a VPN device, piece of hardware. Or you can do a branch office or site-to-site VPN where a box is talking to another box. So it's completely hardware-based, which is obviously better. So this is showing you that example of Firebox to Firebox is what is their name brand. Here we go.
Hi, this is Trevor with WatchGuard Technical Support. Today I'm going to show you how to configure a branch office VPN or VPN between two WatchGuard fireboxes with static IP addresses. Let's jump in. Before we start, you should know that VPN can be configured between two WatchGuard firewalls or a third-party firewall, as long as both sides use the same Phase 1 and Phase 2 settings.
It's a lie.
We'll be configuring the VPN in two parts, the gateway and the tunnel. To begin, we'll go to WatchGuard System Manager and then File, Connect to Device. From there, I'll enter my status account credentials. Then, open up Policy Manager to the firewall.
Yeah, I know I'm blocking. Sorry.
We'll configure the VPN by going to VPN from the top menu, selecting Branch Office Gateway, and then Add. We'll give it a descriptive name such as Gateway from HQ to Branch. And we'll also enter a pre-shared key for the gateway passphrase. Under Gateway Endpoints, I'll click Add. For the local gateway, I'll leave this as the external interface, and leave the primary interface IP address selected. Now, you can choose whether to use the same IP address of the external interface you have selected, or use domain information. For now, we're going to use the same IP address. For the remote gateway section, enter the public IP address of the firewall at the remote location. We'll use the public IP address as the identifier for that as well, and then click OK. Next, we'll click on the Phase 1 Settings tab. For our example, we're going to leave all these as the default. We'll go ahead and click OK from here. Now that we've configured the gateway, we can configure the tunnel. In Policy Manager, we'll go back to VPN and select Branch Office Tunnels, and then click Add again. We'll give this a name like we did with the gateway, such as Tunnel from HQ to Branch. In the Addresses area, click Add, and we'll put in the IP address of our local area network in the Local section. For the Remote area, we'll put the Remote network. When configuring the remote side, we would want these two sets of addresses to be reversed. Next, we'll click on the Phase 2 tab, and again, leave these as default for now. After we click OK through the dialog boxes, you will see two automatically generated policies, VPN allow in and VPN allow out. These have been added to pass traffic on any port through your newly created VPN. You have now configured a basic VPN between two WatchGuards. For more information on VPNs, please see our product links in the description below.
Okay, there's their logo. Part of why I wanted to show you the video is to show you kind of step by step what you're doing. That it doesn't take too long to set up a VPN. Note that it's based around IP addresses or what's talking to each other, and that the two configurations on either side have to mirror each other. So they have to be set up exactly the same way, because if one of them is slightly off, they're never going to talk to each other. So I don't know if you've ever had any experience creating a VPN, but when it works, it's fabulous. And when it doesn't, it's super frustrating to figure out. But once it's set up, it's set it and forget it. And PSK mode, pre-shared keyed mode, is fine because you're just keying in the encryption key on both sides. There's no need to use any kind of authenticator. Just manually put in the key on both sides, because that's not going to change. Notice I am showing you an example with a GUI interface. Be aware that doing this from a command line would be even faster. I mean, all those steps he did, you could probably do in under 60 seconds from a command line interface. And the reason you can use a command line interface is because all these WatchGuard boxes, I know for a fact, are just running Linux under the hood. It's just a Linux box that you can SSH into directly, which is a better way to configure it. In fact, a couple of times when I called WatchGuard tech support to ask them how to do something, they said, oh, actually, you can't do that through the GUI interface. You have to, they said telnet, but, you know, we don't telnet because that's not encrypted anymore. So we use SSH now. You have to SSH into the box and type in these commands. Oh, okay, thanks. So you can always do more from a command line. That's a big deal in all my classes. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's why I want to show you that one. Okay, let me save this video. Let me push it up to my YouTube channel, and I'll do part 2 here in a second.